something they never did once.
Sir Ashley Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 days before Khadur Sharif was released, the Justice Secretary said he had introduced the strictest checks ever seen in our prison system to stop similar unacceptable errors in future. Were they not implemented, or are they not strict enough?
So state.
I say to the Honourable Judge, were you not listening? I discussed the cases. I discussed the cases just a few moments ago. I discussed that those cases emanated prior to those checks, so many of them, and that those cases also, one of the errors started in the court system. It's also the case, and I've been crystal clear about that with the House, in a paper-based system where the most junior people often in our OMUs are dealing with this. You cannot eradicate all human error. And any Secretary of State that stood up this dispatch box and said that would be telling a mistruth.
Sarah Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We, of course, must solve the immediate problem of the accidental releases, which are a huge issue. But in terms of the longer-term planning, we have a very high vacancy rate within our prisons. I understand what the Secretary of State has said about the work that's gone into bringing this down, but will he look at the Justice Select Committee's recommendation to produce a 10-year plan for workforce for the prison system in the same way as we do for the NHS?
Very grateful to my honourable friend, and we are looking at that recommendation. There are significant workforce issues. We're asking our prison officers to work under a system that the prison inspector himself has said is cracking and is at breaking point, and we must invest in our workforce.
That's about.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The day before Prime Minister's questions last week, we spent hours discussing the Public Office Accountability Bill. And I just wondered, bearing in mind there's such a crash in public trust and confidence, whether the Lord Chancellor considered that it might have been better to have referred to the fact that he knew that there was a mistaken release of a prisoner in the offing. He might not have been able to give the details, but I think in order to restore public trust and confidence, and in light of the Public Office Accountability Bill, whether it might be better to have said something and to hold over that decision and say he would come back later to the House with more detail.
So state.
Well, I recognise why the Honourable Lady, who's very reasonable, is making her comment in the way that she is. But I simply say that we inherited a system where 17 errors in release are made every single month. There is a data release every July. I've now updated the House with more information than the House has ever had about this issue. But I've also been clear, as any Justice Secretary would be, that we are not going to be able to eradicate human error and not going to be able to get back to historic levels quickly. But I put in place as much as I can to minimise the risk to the public.
Andrew Peggs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a member representing a prison constituency, I'd like to put on record my thanks to prison and probation staff who work hard under difficult circumstances. But in recognising that, I also know the pressure the prison system is under. It is shocking that a legacy of 14 years handed over to this government, a paper-based system and a prison system that was breaking. The party opposite likes to talk about a farce. If they want to talk about a farce, I will hand them a mirror to look into, because the only farce here is the breaking system. So can my honourable friend tell me what more we can do to support prison staff? Yes, there needs to be accountability, but we need to invest in technology, invest in solutions, and give our prisons the systems they need to stop these things happening in the future.
So state.
Well, he's absolutely right. The best way to deal with this is to move to a system that's based on technology. To use the AI that's out there to properly compare records, whether they come from the court or whether they're from early release. That will take significant time, but I have found £10 million to at least begin that process, and that process begins as a result of these recent high-profile cases.
Sandra Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I tell the Right Honourable Gentleman that even the West Midlands Victims Commissioner, Natalie Kairosh, is herself living in fear due to the government's new release guidelines on open prisons. In 2016, she was stabbed in my constituency 24 times by her ex-partners. She was 8 months pregnant. Her attacker was jailed for 18 years, but is now moving to an open prison 4 years earlier than expected. And Natalie is terrified of coming face to face with him. Can the Right Honourable Gentleman explain why those convicted of domestic abuse who cannot apply for early parole under the SDS 40 process are not also excluded from the government's dangerous policy of moving offenders to open prisons?
So say.
Well, I know that the Victims Minister has met with her, and he will also know that in the sentencing bill we have restriction zones that can restrict the movement of those who have committed crimes like the one he refers to.
Blair Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a Wandsworth MP, my constituents are very concerned about these releases, and they have seen years of underfunding of Wandsworth Prison, but they've also seen more investment by this government since coming into power than for years and years before that. And I have every confidence from visiting the Wandsworth Prison about their new governance and the systems that are putting in place. I thank the Justice Minister for his response to my letter outlining the changes in training, technology and resources that are being put in place to redress these wrongs, and the digital rapid response unit. Could the Minister, just for the sake of my constituents, outline those stronger release checks that he has put in place straight away?
Justice Secretary.
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend and for all of the work that she's doing in her community, and I recognise there will be anxiety in her constituency as a result of high-profile cases that have emanated from Wandsworth. She will know that one of those cases involved an error that actually started in the court system back in September before the checks that I have put in place. But when she asked me to outline what I've done, what it effectively means is that the duty governor, deputy governor are having a double look at what comes out of their OMUs, which are largely staffed by slightly more junior staff in relation who are making these decisions on who should be released from custody. But I look forward to visiting Wandsworth with her in the coming months.
Dr. Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Ministerial Code requires honesty and transparency, and on the 28th of October I asked a written parliamentary question of how many of those released in error under this government remained at large. On the 3rd of November I received an answer, Mr. Speaker, but it did not answer the question. Was that because they didn't know the answer of how many people were at large, or they chose not to be transparent and give the answer?
I explained at length in my statement who is at large. I have released data today outwith of the normal cycle of releasing in July, which was done under the last government. I have been as transparent with this House today on this issue than any minister has been. And I would remind the House, I checked the record, despite 860 releases in error under their watch, they never came to the House once.
Nope.
Not once on this issue. Not once.
Julie Mims.
Speaker, our constituents